All right. Most of y'all probably kind of expected me to come up here and try and entertain you and be a real, kind of sarcastic person and just live it up basically and just try to make you laugh. But I had something happen this weekend that changed my mind about that, and I figured the next 5 or 6 minutes of my life would be better spent paying tribute to somebody who really deserves it and not somebody like Bill Clinton. So. He was born February 1914 in Dallas, Texas. He was the third of 5 children. He went on to raise 4 very successful children who had 7 grandchildren for him, and he now has 2 great-grandchildren. He moved to Atlanta in 1916, and his father built a log cabin on Calhoun Street, which is about a mile from Georgia Tech. My Uncle Tim told me a story about him once, and he had a little group of his friends when he was growing up on the street, and they called themselves the Skull Busters. And they didn't really have much point to the group. It was just good times. But among these were future city councilman Archie Lindsay and future Georgia Governor Lester Maddox. And those were 2 of his good friends growing up. Lester Maddox actually spoke at his 85th birthday party a few weeks ago. All of this is my grandfather, Russell Earl Tarrant. 3 things that I admire most about my grandfather are, one, some of the most amazing things he's accomplished. He's done just a ton of great things that most people would never dream of doing. Another is, even though this is true, he's faced a great deal of adversity in his life, and he's overcome so many things that I admire him greatly for that. And through all of that, he's always maintained a very high level of personal integrity. He's always been very honest and straightforward. He's always there for you. But in his younger years, in high school, he was an All-American high school football player and signed a scholarship to go to Georgia Tech. He played football at Georgia Tech for 2 years, and today there are still records in the record book that belong to him. He left after 2 years to get married, and the coach there wouldn't allow him to play if he was married, so he had to leave, and he had to take care of his younger sister. I'll explain that later. He worked for North Brothers Insulation for a few years and then went on to found his own company called Glass Rock. And they made Glass Rock, which was it was an insulation that they used on rocket cones and launching pads, and they actually used them in the initial rocket launches at Cape Canaveral. The very first attempts to go into space, the product he invented was used there. And also after that, later in life, he turned the log cabin that his father built into an 1,800 square foot home with his bare hands for his family to live in. Though he accomplished all these great things, he went through so many troubling times in his life. His family survived through to the Depression in the 20s, and as soon as the Depression ended, when he was 16, his parents were killed in a car accident. So when he was 16, he was left to take care of his younger sister, who was only 7 at the time. He also served 4 years in a factory in New York during the war. He failed his physical to serve to go fight because he was flat-footed, and so they wouldn't allow him to fight. So he served for 4 years in a missile factory in New York. And also later in life, he was always a very big man. He was probably as much as 350 pounds at some times. And even though he was such a big man, he was always on a diet. And my Aunt Nancy told me a story about how one of his favorite sayings was that you'd ask him how his diet was going, and he'd say he was working it in between his regular meals. So he was also a pretty funny guy. But along with all these things, he was a man of great integrity. He was the leader of the Boy Scouts in Atlanta. And an interesting story about that is my mom told me that when he was younger, he smoked as much as 4 packs of cigarettes a day. And if you're not familiar with that, that's pretty much lighting up a cigarette on the end of the last one. That's a lot. And one day he realized that he was setting a horrible example for the Boy Scouts, and so he quit cold turkey. 4 packs a day, just quit. And never picked up another cigarette again. But he was also a very strong person in the church. He was a deacon in his Baptist church at home, and he helped build the education building for children there. So, and he was also a great family man. As I said, he raised 4 children. They're all independent and successful. All of them have college degrees. He was always honest with you. He'll always be there for you if you need something, and he can always fix anything around the house. They never needed a handyman at home because he'd always fix everything. He fixed the car. He did all the plumbing in the house, electricity, everything. So, you know, he was always there for us when we needed him. But, you know, all these things are just touching the surface of my grandfather. He's a truly amazing person. And I wish I had more time to tell you more about him. But today, he's lying in a hospital bed, and he has pneumonia. And for those of you that don't know, if you're 88 years old, pneumonia is a very hard thing to overcome. But with his personal integrity, his determination, I asked my mom yesterday, and she told me that he is actually walking again with the help of a walker. But he's doing well, and he's fighting through it. But you know, he's a very great man, and I think that, you know, you should all be very impressed with him as I am, and I love him very much. He's my PawPaw, and he's a great man. It's Russell Earl Tarrant.